I think business in general, or the music industry, is more set up on a sharecropper aspect, where I'm not making you work for free, I'm tricking you out of your money once I've worked you. I think that the sharecropper method has worked in sharecropping. I think it's worked in small business. I think it's effective in the music industry because it bases itself on the desires of the person to do good. You know, sharecroppers are a person who wanted to own their own farm, so they were going to work harder for you. You know, sharecroppers are people who had expertise on the land, so they were willing to go out and be their own street teams and work that shit out, and you were just kind of profiting from it. Then you could lie, like, our crops didn't do as well, you know. And my grandfather and grandmother were farmers, for real. So I've seen, you know, or they've told me how it really worked. And the music industry works in a similar way. Like, yeah, man, you sold 1 million records, but goddamn it, we didn't make that marketing money back. I think that the way you combat that is by right now using technology and being independent as fuck. I think what LP said 20 years ago was right. Artists should strive to be independent as fuck. And whether it's being commissioned to paint the Sistine Chapel, so the church gets to tell you what Jesus looks like, or you're being commissioned to paint this particular religious figure and it needs to look like his cousin, or you're an artist that works for Columbia or for BMG or for these other groups. As an artist, anytime you're sponsored, you're going to get put in a position you're uncomfortable with. It's going to be more of a sharecropper position. If you don't want to do that, you just got to be independent. And being independent means you're going to put your own money to yourself. It means you might not get wildly rich, so you're going to have to learn to live below your means. You're going to have to become a better business person. Most artists don't want to become business people. So most artists voluntarily go into that construct, knowing what they're doing. In matters of race and race relations, we have been used and abused as black artists, and we know that. I would argue that what we need is more black professionals behind the desk. You need more black lawyers and attorneys. You need more black agents. You need more black companies that are the bridge between the larger company and the artist. So I would argue we need more Rockefellers, we need more Bad Boys, we need more LaFace Music. And if you don't have that, then you don't have the cultural vanguard that will protect the artists, you know. Because we have artists kind of seeing themselves as having wiped away the middleman and doing direct business with the larger companies, you still have the same thing you traditionally got from saying up to you. So if you want to pull out of the sharecropper syndrome or that construct, then it means to leave and go start your own farm. You know, and starting your own farm means you don't have 100 acres, you got 2. And you have to be comfortable. So I think that for hip hop in particular, we have a lot to learn from the punk aspect. You know, what punk did in the 80s and what hip hop was in the 80s when punk and hip hop were aligned was they did it themselves, you know. And a lot of times doing it yourself isn't romantically as flashy and as fly, and you have to make that decision, you know. If you're an abolitionist, you're not going to get, you know, the money from federal government to help me in slavery. You're going to have to figure that shit out on your own. So I think that's what hip hop artists are going to have to do. And I think that when you do that, it dramatically changes the way they engage in business with you, which is why Cash Money has the sweetest independent deal ever, and why everybody who tried to do what they did after them doesn't, because they weren't willing to make the sacrifices that Baby made 20 years ago, and that was to take his own money and put it back into the business. Yes, sir.
I know you're going to the White House dinner tomorrow. If you had to rate Obama his 2 terms, strictly, give him a grade A, B, C, D, strictly on how he's dealt with race relations in America, what grade would you give him and why?
What grade would I give him on race relations in America?
Like just on how he's handled race relations in America.
See, I'm with the same as any other president. I give the average American president about C minus.
C minus?
Yeah. But that's not just him, it's any U.S. president, you know. I would have probably given Bush a C if we hadn't went into the Iraq war. You know, at the time we went into the war, Bush actually was sending the Committee of People to South Africa on that global relations thing on race they had while Mandela. Mandela was still alive. I thought that was very progressive of Bush to do. I thought that having Colin Powell as the Secretary of State was very progressive. I still am a fan of Condoleezza Rice, you know. So I thought Bush was more progressive than people gave him credit for. And I think our current president is a little less progressive than we give him credit for. But with that said, I think on average, every U.S. president has been about a C, C minus. You know, that's about what I figured you're going to get out of them. I'm more concerned with how local municipalities handle race. So I'm more concerned with cities like Compton, Detroit, Watts, boroughs like Harlem, places like Miami, Alabama, as a state. I'm worried about how they're treating and confronting race. So when talking about race from a federal level, I'm not that interested in it. I don't give a damn. I'm talking about race on the state and local level. That's more about what I'm about. You know, how do we change Ferguson without having it be a federal issue? You know, there should not be a municipality in the United States that has over 60 to 70% African Americans live in that municipality, and that's not reflected on the police force. You know, there should be a municipality in these United States where 50% of the municipality is women, and that's not reflected on the police force. That's not affecting the politics. You know, we're fucking up because we're voting for the wrong people, local and statewide, so we need to fix that. So what my president feels about race or how effective he's been on race is almost a secondary or tertiary thought to me. My thoughts on race are more about what is the Atlanta public school system to say the federal mandated thing that Bush did, sit down and No Child Left Behind, that's fucked up. You know, and I'm more concerned with local municipalities pushing back against, even to the point of saying we don't want your federal money because we think that this particular thing is detrimental to our children. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, touching on the race relations, you know, Loretta Lynch just got elected as Attorney General. So,
Yeah.
You know, do you expect her to be have some sort of as the Black America the officials and the caucuses are, you know, we're expecting about, you know, with Obama talking about the race relations, you know, and him attacking the issue being that he is a first black president. Do you expect Loretta Lynch to take on the same tasks, or take on tasks to basically combat police brutality and the killings of, you know, Black Lives Matter and things of that nature? Or would you not be surprised if she does not?
I expect every black person to. I expect every American to. Because my philosophy is whatever they're going to do to the least of us, and we know in the eyes of police, black men in particular are the least of us. Whatever they're doing to police officers, they are going to do to us all. That's going to happen. Whatever tactic works against the least of people, it's going to work against all the people one day. And if you don't believe me, the same thing that are done to break up protests and riots in Ferguson is the same thing they did to break up protests and riots when kids were sitting in Park Hall and occupied. They sent in tear gas, they pushed the kids into the line of other policemen. Those policemen then committed acts of violence against those people. They then used those acts of violence as an excuse to clear the park. Same thing happened on the streets. So I would expect all Americans to be outraged about it. Do I expect her as a black woman to be outraged and to be vigilant about it? Yes. Will I be disappointed if she doesn't? She's still a politician. I'm not concerned with fixing politicians. My concern is with the proletariat. These people work for you. These people work for me. These people are not our masters. They're not our rulers. And if they are, I think you should just kill your masters. And that doesn't have to be in the literal, but that does have to be in the we won't vote for you or your stinking party if these things keep happening again. And I don't care which party it is. You know, I don't care. I care about as much as, you know, I've gotten over the grace period of, oh, we have our first black president. I've told people my truest thoughts on Obama will be known the day after he is done. Why? Because I'll see who he pardons. You know, to me, that's when I'll know if I voted for the right guy. When I see who he pardons, who's granted grace. You know, I'd like to see a Asad Shakur pardon. Because if you're living in this world right now and you see the brutality that is going on between police and proletariat, you have to understand how intense that had to be in the 70s. You have to understand how intense that had to be in the 60s. Now, I'm not saying she's wrong or right or did she kill a cop out of New Jersey. I'm saying literally this country was at war with itself, civilly. This country was at war. And just like South Africa had a Truth and Reconciliation Committee in which people got to sit in front of the victims, and victims got to sit in front of the people who actually hurt them, and people got a chance to tell those stories in an honest and fair way, and people got a chance to say you're forgiven, or you're forgiven, you still have to serve this, or this is how you pay retribute. I think that our country has to progress to that point. We have to get to the point where we understand that conditions have been so extreme in this country that on both sides, extreme things have happened, and at some point we have to get to the point of forgiveness and moving on. And I think that she deserves that in the same way that many people who were weathermen and many people who fought in the name of liberty, who are not black, are now college professors and are now upstanding citizens of this country. And they're not in prison and on the FBI's most wanted list for the rest of their life. So for me, just my personal thing, like Michael Render, not giving you my agenda, but if that happens on the last day of his presidency, I will know that my votes meant what they were supposed to mean. If not, you know, I'll probably fiddle foul and try to convince myself they work. Yes, sir.
In regards to race, how do universities and colleges convey the message you're trying to send